At 2:17 a.m., a man was officially declared innocent. At 2:18 a.m., the evidence room locked itself from the inside. No one has ever explained how. This case was closed. But nothing about it ever stopped breathing. In true crime, there are cases that end with answers. And then there are cases that end with permission. Permission to forget. Permission to move on. Permission to accept a version of events that feels complete enough. This is not one of those cases. Because years after the verdict, long after the headlines faded, something remained. Quiet, undocumented, and deeply uncomfortable. A detail that never made it into court records. A detail no one wanted to explain. And a man who was officially cleared. Yet never truly free. On paper, it was a quiet Tuesday. No storms. No emergency alerts. No unusual calls flooding dispatch. The kind of night police departments described later as uneventful. Which is often the most dangerous word in hindsight. At 11:42 p.m., a call came in from a residential block where nothing ever happened. A low-crime neighborhood. Well-lit streets. Predictable routines. The caller didn't scream. That's important. She spoke slowly. Carefully. As if choosing the wrong word might make something irreversible. I think something's wrong next door. When officers arrived, they didn't draw weapons. They didn't rush. They knocked. There was no answer. And still, nothing felt urgent. Until they stepped inside. The scene didn't look violent. No overturned furniture. No shattered glass. No visible struggle. That alone confused investigators. Because lying on the living room floor was a body. No obvious injuries. No weapon nearby. And yet there was a detail that stopped everyone cold. The clocks in the house were wrong. All of them. Every digital clock had frozen at 2:17 a.m. Not flashing. Not reset. Frozen. As if time had stopped and never asked permission to continue. His name appeared almost immediately. Because in true crime, there is always someone who makes sense. He lived nearby. He knew the victim. And most importantly, he didn't behave the way people expect innocent men to behave. He didn't cry on command. Didn't volunteer details. Didn't offer the performance investigators subconsciously look for. He answered questions directly. Too directly. And when asked where he was at 2:17 a.m., he paused. Just long enough for suspicion to take root. The interrogation room wasn't hostile. No raised voices. No slam tables. Just calm questions repeated in slightly different ways. This is where competitors in this niche slow the pacing, and for good reason. Because tension isn't built by yelling. It's built by waiting. The detective asked the same question 5 times. Each time, the man answered the same way. I was home. No elaboration. No story. Just the sentence. And something about that bothered them. Evidence began to arrive. And it arrived, neatly. A partial print. A neighbor's statement that changed slightly over time. A security camera that captured movement but no faces. Nothing definitive. But collectively? Enough. Enough to build a narrative. Enough to move forward. Enough to make a jury comfortable. Because comfort, not certainty, is what closes cases. There was a note in the initial report. 1 line. Remove before trial. It read, Evidence locker recorded internal access at 2:18. No explanation. No follow-up. Just gone. And no one noticed. Or worse, everyone did. By the time the case went to trial, the clocks were never mentioned again. Not the frozen time. Not the synchronization. not the fact that power records showed no outage. The jury never heard it. They heard motive instead. Behavior. Tone. And tone is persuasive. The man was convicted. Quietly. No cheers. No outrage. Just a procedural ending to something that never felt complete. Years passed. Then something rare happened. A clerk, who knew, inexperienced, and dangerously curious, requested archived access logs for an unrelated audit, and found a timestamp that didn't belong. 2:18 a.m. Internal. No badge assigned. No manual override logged. Which meant only one thing. Someone was already inside. The conviction was overturned. Officially. Quietly. No press conference. No apology. Just paperwork. The man walked free. But freedom doesn't undo suspicion. And it doesn't answer questions. Especially not the kind that lock themselves from the inside. The evidence room was inspected later. Nothing missing. Nothing altered. Except one thing. The clock inside? Still frozen. At 2:17 a.m. And to this day, no one can explain who entered at 2:18. There was another name on the call log that night. It wasn't highlighted. It wasn't circled. And it was never entered into the official case file. Which is strange, because it appeared before the victim's name. At 11:39 p.m. 3 minutes before that something's wrong next door the call, dispatch received a brief transmission. No address. No request for officers. Just a voice. Low. Controlled. You may want to log this. The dispatcher asked for clarification. The line went dead. No callback attempt was logged. And later, when records were reviewed, that call was categorized as non-actionable. Which is a bureaucratic way of saying, we didn't know what to do with it, so we did nothing. Most people assume investigations fail because of missing evidence. They don't. They fail because of early decisions. Decisions made before patterns exist. Before suspicion has direction. Before anyone realizes what kind of case they're dealing with. And this decision, to ignore the first call, set the tone for everything that followed. Because that call didn't come from a civilian. It came from a restricted line. One only accessible from inside certain municipal buildings. The evidence room access anomaly raised one obvious question. Who else could enter without logging a badge? The answer was uncomfortable. Because access logs didn't only apply to police. They applied to support staff too. Records clerks. IT maintenance. Facilities. People who moved unnoticed. People who didn't testify. And people whose names rarely appeared in case summaries. 3 days after the murder, a routine facilities report was filed. It listed a minor electrical inspection in the building housing the evidence room. The time window? 1:30 a.m. to 3 a.m. No specific date. Just overnight. Which is highly irregular. Facilities logs usually specify exact hours. This one didn't. And the technician assigned? Never interviewed. Not because he refused. Because no one asked. There was a camera in the hallway outside the evidence room. It didn't capture faces, only silhouettes. That's what investigators said. But later review revealed something else. The camera didn't malfunction. It looped. For exactly 63 seconds. Over and over. Which is not what broken systems do. It's what overwritten systems do. Most people don't notice how others walk. But analysts do. Because gait is harder to fake than posture. The silhouette captured that night didn't move like law enforcement. No tactical stride. No equipment sway. No urgency. Instead, measured steps. Hands relaxed. No hesitation at the door. As if the person already knew it would open. Here's where most documentaries would reveal a twist. But this case didn't offer one. It offered something worse. A missing question. Why would someone access the evidence room at 2:18 a.m. before the crime scene was fully processed? That question alone threatened the timeline. And timelines are fragile. If you fracture one, the entire case collapses. So instead of asking it, they avoided it. During the appeal process, a junior analyst submitted a memo. It was never forwarded, but it survived in draft form. He wrote, "If internal access occurred prior to chain of custody initiation, then all subsequent evidence integrity is compromised." That sentence alone should have stopped everything. It didn't. The analyst was reassigned 6 weeks later. Different department. Different city. No explanation. Defense attorneys rely on disclosure. They trust that what they're given is complete. In this case, it wasn't. The defense never received the initial restricted line call, the facility's inspection window, the looped camera behavior, the unassigned access log entry. Not because of malice, but because those details never officially existed. They were categorized out of relevance. Investigators don't wake up intending to frame innocent people. What they do is stop questioning once an answer appears usable. This man made sense. He fit. And once that happens, contradictory data becomes inconvenient. So it gets labeled as noise, or error, or coincidence, until coincidence starts to feel intentional. Years later, during a civil inquiry, a former facilities supervisor gave a deposition. He didn't know what case it was for. He was asked one question. Did anyone ever request after-hours access without logging? He paused. Longer than the suspect ever did. And then said, "Sometimes doors open when they're told to." No follow-up explanation. No clarification. Just that sentence. Modern evidence rooms don't unlock themselves. They require either a logged credential or a manual override. Manual overrides leave traces, unless they're initiated during maintenance mode, which temporarily disables logging for safety. And guess when maintenance mode was active? Between 1:30 and 3 a.m. Investigators eventually tried to explain the frozen clocks. They blamed firmware, a batch update, a glitch. But there was a problem. Only the clocks inside the house froze. The hallway clock didn't. The microwave didn't. The phone didn't. Just the devices connected to one circuit. A circuit that was later inspected. Overnight. When analysts overlaid timelines, something unsettling appeared. Every unexplained action clustered around 2 minutes. 2:16. 2:17. 2:18. Not before. Not after. As if someone needed a narrow window and knew exactly when it would open. The suspect was cleared. Officially. But another person never was. Because they were never accused. Never investigated. Never named. They existed only as a role. A presence. A silhouette with the wrong walk. The case file ends with a signature. The final reviewer wrote, "No further action recommended." But in the margin, handwritten, faint, and almost erased. Someone added a note. "Check maintenance logs again." No one ever did.